Quilt Monkey is brought to you by Aurifil Italian thread, perfectly suited for all your quilting projects.
Hi and welcome to Quilt Monkey. I've got the quilt back that we've been working on for the past few shows. It's now completely quilted and bound and in use, and I think it looks really great. But I had a couple of leftover blocks and I thought to myself, what can we do with those? I don't want to waste them. But they are the perfect size for little throw pillows. And today I'm going to show you how to quilt them. If you are, like me, a quilter that doesn't particularly like the quilting side, if you like to do just straight lines or stitching in the ditch and you're a little bit afraid of free motion quilting but love the effect, then this is for you. We get a really clever free motion quilting effect, but with the security and the happiness of using our walking foot. So I'm going to show you how to do that, get our supplies, and let's crack on. So we're all ready and prepared here. I just need to baste my pillow top, and I'm going to use this basting spray, 505 basting spray. It is really great, particularly for smaller things like small quilts and pillows. Rather than using pins, you just literally glue the layers together, and it's a nice simple process. You just kind of fold back your wadding, your batting, and then give it a little spray. Fold it back there and smooth it all out just like you would if you were basting with pins or with thread. And do the same with this layer. You don't need too much, you just want to hold it and smooth it out like so. Spin it round. Obviously if you were doing a quilt you'd move around, you wouldn't necessarily try and spin it all round. And then fold back so where it naturally kind of tugs and you know that it's stuck. Give it a spray. Smooth it down. And then the final one. So then that is all held in place. It's great. It's particularly good for something like this where you don't want to be stopping and starting and taking your pins out and concentrating on your quilting at the same time. So it is very effective, and you just need to make sure that you use it in a well ventilated room, not in a studio with no windows. And you also don't necessarily do it on your tabletop because it is really sticky. So don't do it on a carpeted floor. Make sure that your floor or the surface that you're using can be washed with like a soapy water. It's sticky. It will stay sticky. Right, that's all basted. Now select your thread. I am going to use this Aurifil 1148. It's a 50 weight and it's a really nice aqua greeny blue colour. I'm going to use that because I want to make sure that we can see the contrast in our quilting, because what we're doing here is the cathedral window effect, and that's going to show up really nicely, the blue thread on the lighter background. So you want to start about 1/4 of an inch in from the edge of your quilt, and we're going to start in the middle and work your way to the edges just as you would with normal quilting with your walking foot. So start about 1/4 of an inch in from the edge, and then without marking, you don't need to mark any lines, you're just going to follow with your eye and the walking foot. Okay, you can take it nice and slowly because you're using the walking foot. Just go out towards the middle with a gentle curve and then come back in to meet the point where the squares meet. And then weave your way like a little snake all the way along, like that, in a kind of S formation. Stop with your needle in the needle down position about 1/4 of an inch in from the end, because this is all going to be hidden. All of the edges are going to be hidden in your seam allowance when you finish off your pillow. Spin it round and then go back, doing exactly the same thing but in the opposite direction all the way to the end. Cut your threads, move to the next line, same again, 1/4 of an inch in, snake down, and you don't need to be super precise. If one edge kind of goes out a little bit more than the other one, it's okay, because once it's all finished and it's all quilted, you still get the same general effect, and you don't want it to look like it's done by robots in China. You want it to look like you've done it. And the more that you do it, the more confident you become, and the easier that it will be to eyeball it. But if you start trying to mark lines and trying to follow those lines, that's when it starts getting really complicated, and you're more likely to get jerky movements as you're trying to adjust it and correct yourself. So once you've done to this edge, start from the middle and then work out again to the other edge. Once all of those are done, turn it round and do the same thing from the middle out to one edge, from the middle out to the other edge, always just 1/4 of an inch in from the edges, and just eyeballing it down, weaving your way like a little snake. Wriggle, wriggle, wriggle all the way around, and then you'll get your cathedral window effect. So I'm going to grab the machine and get that all set up and then show you it in action. I've made a start on my rows here, so you can see the effect that we're going for, and it's a nice smooth action all the way through. I'm going to do the other one. It's also a good idea just to have a little practice run. So on a little scrap piece of fabric, just to familiarise yourself with the action of, it's also quite good to do that as you're doing it. It helps. If you sway, your pillow will sway and you're quilting. So I've prepared, rolled up my side there, and I'm working towards this first edge. I've lengthened my stitch a bit. I quite like that slightly longer stitch when I'm quilting. So I lengthen it to about 3 on my machine. I've got my needle in the needle down position, and I've started just about 1/4 of an inch in. If you want to make that more precise, if you're not too great at judging that 1/4 of an inch, you could always just mark off a line all the way around using an erasable pen, and then just work to that line. So we start off and move ever so slightly out towards the middle, and then we come back in, meet the points, and again. So it's not a huge motion. You're not going all the way out, just kind of a gentle curve, just a little bit of a sway. Out, back in, out, back in, and then stop with the needle in the needle down position, about 1/4 of an inch at the bottom. Foot up, spin round, and then set off in the opposite direction. Once you get more confident, just put your foot down, go for it. You can stop, because your needle is in the needle down position, you can stop at any time. Just readjust yourself, have a little breather, and then carry on. you can't really make a mistake, because even if it does look a little bit jerky, or if you're not super happy with it, once it's all finished, once it's been washed and it gets that crinkly goodness, any kind of imperfection is going to hide. I've done this quilting with absolute beginners that have never even cut a square of fabric before, and by the end of the class we've made a pillow and we've started with just squares, sewn the charm squares together and done this quilting at the end, and every single one of them had a really lovely pillow at the end. So you just have to go for it and don't worry too much. Perfection is overrated. So once you get to the end, needle up, bring your threads out and cut them. We're going to bury, you can bury those threads, you know, sew them in, so you don't just cut them and let them fray. Just leave those nice and long and dangly, and then work all the way to the other edge. And then once you've done that, spin it round and then do the other side, so you've got the opposite. So I will crack on and finish this and show you what I mean by doing the other side. There we have all of these rows done, and I've cut my threads nice and long so I can bury those threads later, make sure that they stay nice and tight. And we're going to start doing the opposite sides. So there's nothing different about this apart from the fact that we are meeting some existing quilting points effectively. So you just need to watch what you're doing a little bit more as you're sewing down. Start again about 1/4 of an inch in from the edge, go out, tuck back in, and then just try and hit where your quilting points have overlapped. If you don't manage, if you kind of cut off one of the little edges of petals, you know, the worst that's going to happen is nothing. That's it. There's no disaster has happened. You have not unleashed demons. You are just going to get a little bit where your points don't match perfectly in the middle. But like we say again and again and again, you are not a robot. This is a handmade item, and that's what's lovely about it. So let's crack on with this one. So the needle's in the needle down position, stitch length is slightly longer, about 3, and then we set off, go out, move back in, and then as you get towards the points, just slow down, hit them, and start off again. And then the same again, slow down, hit those points, and off we go. So it's fine if you do miss the points, but if you just take it nice and steady and slow your machine right down, you can get there. You're fine. It's supposed to be enjoyable. It's not supposed to be a chore. So just enjoy yourself. Spin it around at the bottom, back again. So now we've got an extra point that we've got to miss, that we've got to hit, not miss. So slow right down and go through. And again, speed up, slow. Get to the end and cut your threads. And that is our first opposite row, and you just carry on in the same way doing all of the other ones. I'll just show you what the back looks like, because we've obviously used the spray based rather than pins, and it works really well. The stitches look great on the back as well. There's no puckers, there's nothing nasty going on. It's just a really nice effect, and I mean you could do that. Just grid it out and you could actually just sew onto a plain fabric and do a really nice kind of sashiko effect whole cloth. Might try that. Just mark out a nice grid using your ruler and your erasable pen. That would be quite fun. Oof, I've had a genius idea. Right, and there you have it. Because these needles can be a little bit gummy after you've used your basting spray, just take your needle out and give it a little wipe. If it's a new needle, you don't need to necessarily replace it straight away, but just give it a little bit of a wipe with a cloth. And that will get rid of any gumminess. They won't be too bad, but there might be just a little tiny bit of stickiness, like if you were using some fusible interfacing. So then just trim off the excess wadding and backing, and you can turn that into your pillow. So just in whatever your preferred way is. I like to do just a simple envelope back. And because you've sewn just 1/4 inch in all the way around, you won't be cutting off your points. And that is it. So if you've enjoyed using your walking foot to quilt in a kind of free motion way, then there's lots of other ways that you can quilt your work and get that same kind of effect. This one is like a petal design, and it's exactly the same principle. Instead of following the seam lines down and doing your little snaky line, you're going to go across using the diagonal, so across the center of the blocks, and go all the way across and then all the way back again, and do that the same on the opposite way, and you get this cute little petal flower effect, which again is nice and easy, and you don't need to mark out. You can just eyeball it and wiggle your way through. So I'm going to do some more of this because I've really enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time on Quilt Monkey.